High Poly 3D Portfolio with focus on pop culture by Håvard Lars Larsen. Okay, so to recap, I'm just gonna read this off so we don't get any problems with Christina. Okay, so research question: how much has Lars's 3D sculpting skills improved in 2 years when he had no skills to begin with? What would a personal portfolio with finished, custom-tailored images look like? Okay, and so the project aim? The idea is to have a short document with finished work pieces that display competence in camera composition, 3D sculpting, model posing, and scene setup. This will be evidence of what a future employer can expect from Lars, that's me, as well as being a showcase to people not familiar with 3D artwork and sculpting. And as before, we might have random people going, who's Lars and why does he matter? But, I talked about this quite a bit last time, so I don't want to spend 20 minutes re-explaining that, so let's just look at the next question. So random people might go, okay, fine, but what have you done since last time? Well, let's cover last time first. Last time, I did 3 images based on high poly sculpts, and I talked about my process and yeah, just how I got from A to C. Okay, so let's just move on. Okay, so the plan for this year. Create 2 to 3 challenging sculpts based on Dragon Age, and then take a break to work on smaller sculpts in between. The idea is that I want to get in the habit of producing more than I'm currently doing. But how did it go? Well, not good. There were 2 more courses. There were 2 more? No, there were just more courses this year generally, as opposed to last year. But I still managed to create 2.5 sculpts, as opposed to the 4 I did last year. Then again, I also designed 1 model practically from scratch in this year, which was a lot of work. But before we get to that, let's talk about my 1.5 sculpt first. Let's see, the inspiration for sculpt 1.5 was from a drawing I found that I drew when I was 9 years old. And as we can see, it's like a mashup of Earthworm Jim and Duke Nukem. And on a side note, I don't even know if it's okay for a 9-year-old to be playing a 18-year-old rated game. But yeah, it was one of my many inspirations as a kid to draw and create things. So I thought, ooh, wouldn't that be fun to do as a small side project while I'm working on one of my bigger ones? And funnily enough, this was the only side project sculpt I did this year because of so many assignments. So I guess the other assignments became my side projects. So yeah. But enough about that. Let's just look at the friggin' sculpts. Yeah. As you can see, this is why I call them 1.5, because 1 was drawn more into the concept art, if you will. Whereas the other one was more a vanilla-based Earthworm Jim. And yeah, I could probably have polished them a little bit more, but the whole point was to spend less time second-guessing myself and just try and produce faster and not always be such a perfectionist, because I'm trying to force myself to force my knowledge to work faster and more consistent. So I talked more about that last time, but yeah, that's my thoughts. So yeah, moving on. So yeah, Dragon Age Origin sculpts. Okay, A little bit about Dragon Age Origins. Well, it's a computer game, as you probably could guess from the image. Um, and it had a really fantastic story with a lot of colorful characters, uh, at least in their personality. Visually, the game was lacking in graphical resources, as I wrote there. Um, and what I mean by that is uh, people didn't look as iconic as they were written. Uh, for instance, you can see them all now wearing different clothes, which is fine, but a lot of these clothes are on other NPCs in the game, and later on, you start finding full plates, and like 6 out of 8 characters can wear them. So you kind of get this situation. Yeah, as you can see, armors looked alike, and it was hard telling who was who. And during conversation, it became just kind of ridiculous. You might go to you know, for instance, Juliet, and go, Juliet, you stupid bitch, I hate you so much. And then the other one goes like, dude, it's me, Carl. Oh, I'm sorry, you're wearing the same stuff. So yeah, you know, that was kind of the only problem I had with the game. And I wanted to recreate some of these characters with stronger identities and make them more stylized, like you can see in the Warcraft games, and for instance Street Fighter. So yeah. Um, so yeah, here we have Queen Honora, who is a potential ruler of Ferelden, depending on how you play the game. She is an archer who should be wearing leather according to the game mechanics. Um, but because she is a queen, she is later seen wearing a full plate, a golden full plate. But it's kind of generic. It's like the other full plates, except it's tinted gold. So it's, you know, it could be better. And then I thought to myself, how do I combine these two elements of leather and this gold metal armor? Well, I had to do some research. So yeah, although the genre is fantasy, I still wanted to research armors and archery to gain historical and practical context. In the words of Hamlet, drama holds a mirror to nature. And what it just means is that good drama um, reflects back a lot of relevant elements to the viewer that he or she can recognize herself in. And that's a very powerful quote because people who read Hamlet and studied it believes that Shakespeare himself was actually speaking to the audience during this moment. So yeah. Um, yeah. Anyway, I wanted to just research and get my own take on armors and bows because the best artists, they usually get their source material from history as well, and they don't just copy one source like other fantasy games or Tolkien. So now, obviously, the armor I'm making. You thinking I'm gonna make it historic, classic, and Renaissance. And of course, nah, it's a plate bikini. It's a plate bikini, guys. Just, you know, yeah. And I also would like to just take this moment to thank Norov for having so many courses this year. I'm stuck talking about the plate bikini for the remaining time of this presentation, as it's the only Dragon Age model I had time to sculpt. Uh, yeah, and it's fair to say that this presentation is so far the biggest pinnacle of my career. So thank you, Nora, for the opportunity, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of this presentation. I'm kind of kidding, but not really. Okay, so before we continue, I should probably talk a little bit about the general vision I had for Anora, and that is something in the style of what you could expect to see from Blizzard, or as I mentioned before, Street Fighter. Characters with really strong silhouettes and that look really dynamic and iconic, easily identifiable is a good word I would use. And in terms of armor, actually, I would think it's fair to say I would want something form-fitting. If we look at the armor here, I do point more to modern armors as opposed to medieval armors, because I want something that's I'm gonna add medieval aspects to it, but I want modern, sleek armor design. So that's what I'm going for, and I'm keeping this in the back of my mind while I'm going forward. And yeah, and I'm just kind of challenging. Okay, but would this work in the Middle Ages? You know, how does this compare to full plates and other armors? Because I found they were kind of bulky, and I mean that's history. But I don't know if that's because the blacksmiths couldn't make them more form-fitting, or if it was by design. So I really have to study that, and let's look at how that goes. What does research say about form-fitting plates, female armors, and armor bikinis? Go. Okay, that's not helpful. Okay, let's go. Go. Okay, so what I found is that in medieval times, protection is unisex. So that means that an armor that a man would wear is already the optimal. So if there were any female soldiers with full plates, they would wear similar type. So it's not man-sized, it's just unisex. It's just how that's how we get the optimal result. And why is that? Well, let's see. The armor to the left is relatively protecting, I would say. Even if you go full out. But as you can see, it has like these breast enhancements on the plates, and that's a bad thing because if someone runs up with a warhammer and just smashes it in, smashes in your armor, well, you're gonna have a bulk poking against your chest, and it's just gonna be awkward and hurting, not to say the least. But if you wear the one to the right, well, there's a lot of room in there, so if the armor gets dented, you'll probably have a good chance of coming out of that situation unharmed. Furthermore, the round shape on the armors make it awkward for swords to connect, so a lot of the blades would just slide off. So it would be kind of awkward to fight someone in a full plate. And when I learned this, I was kind of like, huh. So, well, that's good and all, but what about form-fitting plates? What can I do? Should I just give up? Should I just give up on this quest on hotness? Well, not necessarily, because I'm looking to modern armors. They are made from modern materials and can often be form-fitting due to their particular nature. Furthermore, in Dragon Age, there are magic materials, dragon bones, and reinforced metal that can be used. Also, leather armor with light metal plating is still additional protection against arrows and swords. Just look out for warhammers. Yeah. So, despite all this in mind, I still wanted to go for the heels and cleavage. So, let's look at the result. Oh no, that's not the result. No, no. Jesus Christ, I scare myself. Okay, no. Um, the next slide is the result. This is the journey. So I start by just grabbing some virtual clay, or a ball in ZBrush, and I just sculpt until I get something that resembles ET, and then I put on some hair, and a little bit of makeup. And in the second slide we see there, I was just experimenting with padding and what would work, what wouldn't work. And when we got to slide number 3, this is where I started to do my research. And now I believe we should actually see my result. So yeah, here's the result. And yeah, that's the that's the result. But I still haven't posed this model, and I unfortunately didn't get that far. But what we can still do is look at some extra things that researching helped me with. So yeah, old versus new. Okay, so in the upper left corner, we see like this, my first attempt to block out the armor a little bit, and well, there are some problems just in the drafting. I mean, like, she has 2 plates in the front, and well, she might be able to contort her body from side to side, but she won't be able to lean forward without poking herself in the stomach, and she might just have to stop midway. But in the new draft, I replaced the one plate with several plates, so there's like this elasticity to it, and so now she can bend forward. And I also added some side protection as well, and it's done in a way so that she can contort her upper body and not be restricted, but still be protected. And finally, in the on the shoulder pads behind her back, I wanted her to just have enough movement to be able to aim her bow without being obstructed into the back, because a lot of archers typically didn't wear heavy armor because they needed all the freedom of movement in their upper body to aim and draw the bowstring. So yeah, that's why it is what it is. Okay. So yeah, what's left exactly? Well, yeah, I wrote bow sword there, and that's the weapon she's gonna have. And don't worry, there's research here. So after that, there's posing, and just because I like you guys a lot, I intended to only pose after I had the weapon done, but I'll do a little quick post render for you guys. Okay, so before we talk about the bow sword, I watched a lot of medieval weapon enthusiasts and professionals discuss bow and arrow, and they often showed practical examples and debate what we see in films, which was vastly entertaining. Here's a research question I had related to bow design while I was looking up information. If you're out of arrows, can you use your bow as a striking weapon? And I found the answer by an infotainer who had made a video. His name is Skullgrim, and what he essentially says is that you could use a bow as a striking weapon, but use anything else first, like even a broom, because a bow, after you take away the string, it'll unfold because it's very bendy. So it's not a good hitting weapon. But I thought about this for a few days, and I finally came up with like this little idea for a weapon. So the idea here is, if we look at the image to the left, in image 1 you have the bow itself, but if the string is cut, the bowback will bounce forward, and when that happens, a blade will come up from the front and adjust itself to the bowback. So now you have like these swords, and you can contract the bottom part away from the top part, and now you have two swords. So that would be interesting to 3D model later on, I think. So yeah, that's what I had in mind. Anyway, let's look at the final render, and I'll move on. There we go. It's not the best pose, obviously, because I didn't have a lot of time to pose her. I think I spent like mostly an hour, and that's a quick pose, so yeah. But it's something at least. And something is better than nothing, I guess. Anyway, thank you guys for bearing with me and my presentations for 3 years now. It's been a blast, and I'm now ready to answer any questions if you want, or not. That's totally up to you.